Hey guys, I'm KJ, and this is the CC Creator Series. Liz, welcome. We have obviously been friends for a while. So happy to have you as part of the CC family. Can you kind of just give me sort of the high level about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm LizBCroft. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm based in New York City. In my 9 to 5, I guess you can say, I have my own private practice called MENTL.SESH, where I meet with athletes and creatives for individual therapy. And then on the outside of that, I'm a digital creator where I'm trying to kind of connect the dots between sneakers, sports, mental health, all things pop culture, and making mental health more digestible.
I love that. I think what's so cool about you is you really reside in this niche that is kind of untapped. Um, I don't know that I know the answer to how your platform started to grow. Was it something that was intentional for you? Did it start with sneakers? What was the process of building that community?
When I first started doing this whole creator movement on Instagram, it really kind of came out of the fact that I was working a full-time nonprofit job doing in-home family therapy in New York, which was like a whole thing in and of itself. And I was like getting burnt out. And I had just been out of grad school for like probably it was my first job out of grad school. I was working there for like 6 months and it was like, holy shit, like I'm burnt out. And so Colin actually, my fiance, was like, well, why don't you just start posting, like, you love sneakers, you love, your style, like, why don't you start like just sharing that as your creative outlet? So that's kind of where that began. But for a while I was only really showcasing like the hype bay version of me and trying to be like all streetwear and following the trends and trying to just do what I thought needed to be done in order to like fit in. And so for a while I was like living these like two separate lives of like being like a therapist in my like full-time job, and then like on social media being this like trying to be like influencer, I guess, at the time. And it got taxing in and of itself. Like what started as like a creative outlet turned into like something that actually negatively affected my mental health. So I was, I've been in and out of therapy my whole life, which is essentially, how I decided to become a therapist. But my therapist was like, you love sneakers and you're a therapist. What's wrong with that? Even though it's not the norm. So that kind of helped me start like sharing more about my expertise online and caring less about doing what everyone else was doing and not feeling like I needed to kind of, be this like hype bay and do all those types of things to be noticed or be included. So Nike at the time, they had this incubator program called Cultivator. And so it was essentially like Nike by You, but a little bit more maxed out. You got to be able to have a little bit more options than a typical Nike by You. Essentially, it was me and like 20 other people, and we had this really cool chance to tell our story through sneakers. And in my application, I said, like, I'm a full-time therapist, and if I were to ever design a shoe, it would basically promote mental health awareness and show that like we can have these conversations in different, communities and make it approachable. A lot of people think it was like a full-blown Nike collab, and it really wasn't, but it just took off. Like it sold out in like less than 2 days, and it was wild, just the traction it got. It's right here. It's
So good.
Yeah.
I need a pair.
Well, we're the same size, so that's good.
Perfect. Fantastic.
No, I chose green because that's the color of mental health awareness.
Okay.
And then on the back, at the time, it was like right when the Drake song came out. So
yeah.
And then they had this like wavy swoosh, which people think I changed, and I got Nike to change the swoosh, which I didn't, but I'll go with it. So what? But no, I wanted to use this, but I was like, how can I use this swoosh with this storytelling? So something I often say about mental health is that healing is not linear. And so the ups and downs kind of reflect all the ups and downs that we face in life. And that's kind of how that tied in. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Community is something that is obviously super important to you, the way you speak about basketball, to so many of the campaigns that you've been a part of. Being a psychotherapist and your background as a licensed clinical social worker, how do you feel that makes you approach social media differently? And does it make you adapt how you communicate on your platform with that background?
I definitely think it plays a huge role. Like this is probably not a great quality, but I'm like a very literal person. Like straightforward to the point. I do not pick up well on sarcasm. Colin always like gets on me about this, but um when I think of social media, like it's meant to be social, and that is like the literal sense of it. And that's how I approach it, of like, I can connect with people that I probably would never have the opportunity to connect with if we didn't have this platform. So I kind of, have no shame in just like reaching out, connecting, talking, trying to get to know people. And I think as a therapist, like I naturally have to ask some uncomfortable questions. So like just doing that is very comfortable for me because it's nothing compared to what I have to do in my job. I've met some amazing people, and I think taking it offline from URL to IRL is also really important to continue to grow those connections and community, and just really form genuine, authentic relationships with people.
Okay. Footwear is obviously, a significant part of your brand. It's something we have bonded over. I don't know that I know, what is one of your grails? What's a sneaker that you really wanted to get your hands on that you have in your collection?
It's tough. Like I think my grails change
Me too.
as sneaker like culture is what it is now. Some of my grails maybe a year or two ago are very different. I would say like a Mars Yard, for sure. And I really, for me, it's like pairs I think that are also attainable. Like I'm not gonna try and go after like fragment ones or anything that's like, even some of the Union ones right now, like insane. I can't even go after that. But like the Melody Asani question mids that she did, I love those. I would definitely go after those. A lot of like the old AIs, I would say are grails for me, just because like growing up in Pennsylvania, like Iverson was my role model.
You're pretty active on Twitter.
I think I'm a little bit more spicy on Twitter.
I would agree. I insert Liz's Twitter handle, right?
Try not to be like in a negative way. I'm just calling out like calling a spade when it comes to just like mental health awareness and advocacy and like this trend of mental health.
MENTL.SESH is so cool. We obviously get to kind of work with you on some of those activations, and you're doing some fantastic work. Can you tell me about some of your favorite collaborations you've done in the past year or two through that?
I would say probably the work we've done with Staple in May, this past May. That was really cool because we really got to work with them like almost in a full 360 of like working first and foremost with their team and talking about mental health and what that looks like in the workplace, and then kind of transitioning that into a collaboration of product. And that was my favorite because like of all the collabs that I've done, Jeff was so hands-on and involved in this, and like seeing someone with his schedule, like of his, status, like it's just wild to like even think that he like made time to do that. And when we shot the lookbook, it was also cool because it was the only project I could really include like my friends in. And so like all of the models in the lookbook were like my support system. As an Asian American man, as a male, like just talking openly about his mental health, like is so significant.
What would you say, and you obviously do so much work with MENTL.SESH in consulting with brands and, how they approach mental health awareness as a brand holistically and with their teams internally. What would be, like one or two tangible things that you would encourage brands to keep in mind when trying to broach that subject?
I always say, and it sounds a little cocky, but I don't mean it in a cocky way. Like if you're going to talk the talk, you need to walk the walk.
So
and
true.
what that like means for me when it comes to mental health is like, okay, this is awesome that you want to have this conversation, you want to raise awareness, but now let's include professionals in that field, because this is still a topic that is very sensitive, and you could be putting something on a shirt that actually can be triggering for someone. And that's why it's important to have these like professionals, even though the intention is good, it could do more harm. And, you know, being able to offer resources and an actual takeaway for the consumer other than just wearing the shirt. Because at the end of the day, like me putting on a hoodie or me putting on a t-shirt or a hat or whatever isn't doing anything for my mental health. But giving people an actual tool or a resource or a tip, you know, that helps your mental health. That is something that is useful.
At what point in building your community did you hit kind of a stability around consistency of partnerships? Or did you feel like you were kind of building somewhat of a business out of your personal LizBCroft brand on social?
Yeah, so I think for first and foremost, like I launched MENTL.SESH in May of 2020. So it's just over a year old. And really like I launched MENTL.SESH because that was my private practice. Like that is, you know, I have dreams to build like a brick and mortar one day and like offer in-person therapy sessions and bring on other clinicians and make it a thing. But, you know, MENTL.SESH was first and foremost my private practice. So like that was kind of my way of also separating like LizBCroft as like the creator who like also loves sneakers, but here's my private practice. And like if you want mental health, you know, information or resources or whatever, like here's a one-stop shop where you can get that. You might not always get that on my page because I'm also a human and I like all this other stuff and I'm gonna showcase that. But if you are just looking for the mental health stuff, here's where you can go.
What would you say to a creator who is, you know, just starting to monetize their platform, you know, trying to kind of get the lay of the land? What would be some advice? What have you kind of learned as you're growing both a business and your personal brand?
I think for me, it's really quality over quantity. Follower count, likes, all that stuff, like that doesn't necessarily matter. There's some people out there with hundreds of thousands of followers that don't really have much to show for it. And I think it's bigger than social media. You know, it's like if Instagram or Twitter or whatever just decides tomorrow they're shutting down, closing the doors, what do you have outside of it? Like what do you have to show for it besides your following and looking cool for the gram? You know, like you have to have something else to fall back on. Really what it's about is like finding your thing, owning it, and it's going to feel really awkward at first because if it's your thing and it's unique to you, chances are there's not a lot of other people doing that and it's going to feel isolating, it's going to feel uncomfortable. But to just own it and keep going because I think, you know, it eventually works out and people support it. And I think when people see that you're being authentic and genuine to who you are, they're more inclined to support that than to support someone who's just trying to keep up with the Kardashians or the Joneses or whoever.
Now, I would say, you know, you're one of the top female streetwear influencers in North America at minimum. And I think I'm underselling you with that title even because you're so unique to who you are. And you're someone who has, you know, incredible hype pieces but you can walk into a store and buy a shoe retail that you love. You know, I see you and you're like, I'm wearing my Crocs and I'm super happy. And to me, that's just like the most authentic. It's just real and relatable. What would you say is your biggest tip to someone who is trying to grow their brand? What would you say to someone who's like, I'm not growing. What do I do?
Yeah, you're gonna like this quote. But what I'm gonna say is don't compare your IRL to someone else's URL. Because there is literally so much going on behind the scenes, and Instagram, social media in general, is really truly a highlight reel. Just focus on you, give people their flowers at the same time, but don't let other people's successes make you feel like you're not, you know, doing enough because you are.
Interested in what you would say to someone who is maybe considering finding a therapist or hasn't done that before and maybe finds it a little bit intimidating or is like, do I need to go to therapy? Or what would you say to someone to kind of make them feel more comfortable about that?
Yeah. So what I would say is that just as much as we all as humans go to the gym, we exercise to take care of our physical health, going to therapy is the equivalent of that for our mental health. And going to therapy does not mean that you're crazy or there's anything wrong with you. It's just a way to make sure that you're your best mentally. Going to therapy more of a normalized, regular thing for every single person. It's so important to find a therapist that's a good fit, because this is someone that you're going to probably share some of your most vulnerable moments with, and you want to feel like they understand you, that you feel comfortable with them, that they're trained in the correct like therapy modalities that are best fit for your needs. They have experience working with, certain populations. Because if not, it's not going to be effective and you're not going to feel comfortable. And I think, there are like these websites out there like mentalhealthmatch.com, Alma, which is where I'm a member of, My Wellbeing, and they all offer matchmaking services to take that overwhelming part out of finding a therapist. And they even factor in like insurance, out of pocket, what you want to pay. So it's great. And I think, when you're looking for a therapist, shop around. You don't just call the first one and go with it. Like, have a couple conversations.
It's like dating,
It really is. That's one thing I want to do with MENTL.SESH, is have like a speed dating event with therapists for people to come meet different therapists.
So your wedding is coming up next summer. Yep. Super exciting. You can have one celebrity performing at your wedding. Who's coming?
Post Malone.
Dear Post. You have an open invite in Brooklyn, baby. We'll give you the address to that too. Question for you. We are going to see you at ComplexCon next week. You are doing a very cool partnership with Moleskine. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening there?
Yeah. So our goal with this activation is to basically give people a bit of a space from the chaotic, overwhelming, high sensory environment that is ComplexCon. So we're partnering with Moleskine to create our own custom notebooks for MENTL.SESH, which are very cool. We'll have Christian, our creative director, in there live doodling some affirmations, some cool journal prompts on the walls of the activation. We want to really kind of just create a hangout, chill space for people to take like a mental break while they're there. And throughout the weekend, we'll be doing workshops where, I'll be meeting with, smaller groups of people to talk about the benefits of journaling and how you can use your Moleskine notebooks to really get your feelings out from your head to on paper, and why that is helpful for one's mental health.
Can you let people know where they can find you on socials? If we're looking for Liz, where can we find her?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Liz, the letter B, and then Croft. My last name is Beecroft. Everyone always thinks it's Croft for some reason.
Can confirm it's Beecroft.
And then MENTL.SESH is MENTL.SESH's Instagram and Twitter. We don't really tweet a lot on MENTL.SESH.
We met her, and you can find her on TikTok too, actually.
On TikTok, LizBCroft as well.
Okay, no, I actually have one last question for you. For someone who's like, I love your sneaker collection, I like sneakers, I don't know where to start, like, what do I do? If someone's kind of trying to just break into the sneaker world, where would you tell them to look, especially as a female in the space?
Yeah. I would say, find a brand that you like based on values, what resonates the most with you just as a human. Go to their website, go to women, shoes, and just scroll.
Yeah.
And if you see a pair that you like, get those. That's it.
100%.
These blogs, and don't let other people tell you what to buy what you like.
Liz, we could speak to you forever and ever. You are the best. We're so excited that we have you in the CC fam now. Can you give us just a little tour of the sneaker space? Can you just give us a little visual of what's happening behind you?
All right, so I'm gonna take a couple steps out.
Oh, it's stunning. It's really stunning. And how do you have them? Do you have them by silhouette? Do you have them by color? Like oh my God, they're beautiful.
So I kind of don't, I have it by brand actually. And it's like weird. So like all my Jordans, my ones, and I try to go like 1, 2, 3, 4 down the line. My New Balance are over here. And then these are like Air Forces and like Moabs, and then I have like my Saucony in the bottom. This is all Dunks in the middle. These are all Air Maxes, starting from like 1s down to the 270s. Then I have like the waffle racers. What else do I have down here? Blazers. I have those Stussy Spiritins.
Wait, do you have the which ones do you have? Oh yeah. Love. I took an L on those. I wanted those. Those were on my list.
I haven't worn them at all.
I'm calling you for those ones. Thank you so much for being a part of the CC Creator Series. We love you. We love having you part of the family, and we can't wait to follow along on some of the upcoming partnerships you have in the works.